Chen Lang stood dazed as if struck on the head, his brain spinning, because the crying infant actually possessed a golden bloodline. It wasn't ordinary but shone with a blinding light, as if a spotlight were shining directly into his eyes, blurring his vision. Chen Lang gaped and stammered, his mind a tangled mess. What on earth was this? He had never seen Big Idiot's bloodline, but Lai Tangqiu had, and he confirmed it wasn't a golden bloodline. While Big Idiot was stronger than him and Illuminana far surpassed Milan, they couldn't produce such offspring. Yet he and Milan had birthed this. It felt like a ghost story. Chen Lang suddenly remembered that Milan had become strangely beautiful during her pregnancy, a refined, upgraded version, and had become oval as sensitive. He could sense her from afar, and she even vaguely knew the child's thoughts. He had previously thought this was normal. Thinking back now, it wasn't normal at all. Chen Lang leaned down to look at the child, who had stopped crying and was staring at him with round eyes. Its tiny mouth pouted innocently and piteously, its face a startling resemblance to his own but with Milan's refined features, beautiful as a painting. Perhaps it was a genetic mutation. In this world, heredity existed, but mutations were also frequent, especially among high-level bloodlines where the probability was even higher. Death, what a good baby. Father, give the child a name, his mother-in-law said softly. Chen Lang blurted out immediately, let's call him Shenrar. Before he could finish, he was smacked on the head by his mother. What kind of careless naming is that? This is my grandson, not a common pebble. Chen Lang laughed sheepishly. Then let it be Shenjir. The women looked at each other, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. The name sounded far too casual, but he didn't care to think further. It was a pity for the child that when it was his turn, a name was chosen so haphazardly, while Shen Mai's name had been pondered by the king for days to select something both elegant and profound. At that moment, Milan spoke up softly, I think this name is fine. It suits my husband well. Chen Lang thought to himself that having one person named Lang and one named Jir sounded quite logical. After thinking that, he even felt he was quite clever and finalized the decision. Chenjir, Milan repeated softly. She found the name strangely fitting, not for any profound meaning, but because it suited Chen Lang. Husband, let me hold the child, she said, weakly reaching out her hand. Chen Lang felt his heart tighten as he watched. Her hand was shaking like a leaf, frighteningly weak. Chen Lang hurried forward, gently placing the baby in her arms and immediately checking her condition. Her body temperature had stabilized and the fever was gone. Milan was overcome with joy as she held the child, forcing a faint smile as she whispered, Chen Lang, I feel so tired. Hearing this, Chen Lang turned pale with terror. This was not good. Her heartbeat was feigned, and her breathing was weak and fading. The delivery had clearly been smooth without any hemorrhaging, so why was this happening? He called out frantically, darling, don't sleep. Please, don't sleep. See miss. Milan's mother shouted in a panic. Quickly, call Lin Cheng here immediately. Chen Lang immediately thought of Lin Cheng. A high-level expert could transmit internal energy to sustain her vitality. In this world, martial artists use internal energy to stimulate bloodlines. It should be able to preserve her life. This seemed to be the only way. As soon as Lin Cheng arrived, he began channeling internal energy into Milan, forcing her bloodline to circulate, but it was to no avail. After half an hour, his internal energy was nearly exhausted, and Lai Tangqiu rushed in to take over. Then came the experts of the Marquis of Chuanwu's manor, followed by the people from the Snow Mountain Palace. They took turns like a relay, continuously channeling internal energy into Milan's body. Although internal energy could not cure her, it could barely keep her bloodline moving, but it was still useless. Milan's heartbeat slowed, and her breathing grew fainter. Chen Lang used everything, tonics, stimulants, even addictive drugs, but nothing worked. There was no way to stop her vitality from slipping away. The entire world seemed to go dark. Milan fell into a long sleep, as if she were merely sleeping but would never wake up. Several hours passed. Chen Lang exerted all his effort, and the entire manor did everything in their power to save her, but she remained in a deep coma, unconscious yet still breathing. Her heart still beat, but it was so faint it was almost imperceptible. Her body seemed to be protecting itself by forcing a state of deep sleep, much like a person in a vegetative state, or more accurately, she had become a vegetable. Chen Lang sat motionless by the bed, his world feeling as if it had half elapsed. He couldn't understand why childbirth, which was supposed to be a joyous occasion, had turned into such a disaster. At that moment, Chen Jir's loud wailing filled the room, sounding quite agonizing. Take him away, I don't want to see him, he said, his voice hoarse and tears falling incessantly. Reason told him he shouldn't blame the child, but a sense of resentment still welled up in his heart. Chen Jir cried until he was exhausted, now only sobbing weakly and piteously. Zhu Beibei wanted to offer comfort but her throat tightened, leaving her unable to speak. Binner, her eyes red, stepped forward to take the child and nurse him. She still had plenty of milk to raise another, especially since Shen Mai had already started on solid foods. In the room, his father-in-law, mother-in-law, parents, and Lai Tangqiu stood behind Shen Lang, all filled with worry and pain. But the most terrifying thing was that he might not be able to withstand this shock. After a while, Shen Lang slowly raised his head. I'm fine, he said hoarsely. For the time being, no matter what happens, do not disturb me. The Southern New War, the Nirvana Army, national affairs, he ignored them all. His heart held only Milan. Even the state of you could not compare to her. In the following days, Chen Lang tried 100 ways and 1,000 schemes to no avail. He could not wake Milan. He could clearly feel her vitality weakening. Although the process had slowed, if it continued, he didn't dare imagine the end. She might never wake up and simply stop breathing one day. For several days and nights, Chen Lang did not sleep, racking his brain for any way to save her, but he still failed. No one's advice was useful until Binga led the toddling Shen Mai into the room. Chen Lang's face was haggard and his eyes were dark. He was startled to see them. When did this child learn to walk? Papar, go to sleep. Papar, go to sleep. The childish voice rang out. Binga didn't bring Shenjir because he knew he wasn't ready to see him. All right, Papar will sleep, Chen Lang replied softly, his voice exhausted. He returned to his room, collapsed onto the bed, and fell into a sleep as deep as death. waiting until Shen Lang fell into a deep sleep, then quietly brought Shen Yi back. She gently placed the child in Milan's embrace, tears streaming down her face, her expression one of both heartbreak and hesitation. Sister, please wake up soon. If you keep sleeping forever, our Lord will collapse, and if he goes down, this entire household is finished. After sleeping for 20 consecutive 2-hour watches, Shen Lang woke up. This time, a completely different idea sparked in his mind. Since Shen Yi carried the golden bloodline, his development naturally required massive amounts of energy, almost all of which was drawn from Milan's body. To put it simply, the child had drained his mother's life force. Thus, after delivery, she was completely depleted and fell into a deep coma, especially since Shen Lang had to force the delivery at the very end. Otherwise, the child would have stayed in the womb, sucking her dry until the last drop of life force. By then, Milan likely would have had no chance of survival. Thus, to save her, the problem returned to her bloodline. Saving her men, starting with her bloodline more precisely, enhancing it and recreating an energy source strong enough to pull her back. The only way forward was a bloodline evolution. At this thought, Shen Lang immediately plunged into his experiments. He drew Milan's blood for testing, a glimmer of hope flashing through him. After giving birth to a golden bloodline child, could she have turned into an empty spirit bloodline? If so, it would be much easier, but the results left him disappointed. Her bloodline had indeed changed, but from his unique perspective, there were no shortcuts. Shen Lang gritted his teeth and continued his trials. He introduced a low-level golden bloodline parasite into Milan's blood sample. In an instant, the weak bloodline factor flared up violently and then immediately exploded. The blood seemed to boil and surge before shattering. The results were always the same. Aside from those with an empty spirit bloodline, no one could modify their bloodlines. The only outcome was their body exploding into pieces. Shen Lang was on the verge of madness, but he quickly forced himself to calm down, continuing to experiment, think, and search for a path to survival. He knew he was racing against time. After endless calculations based on Milan's rate of decline, he reached a brutal conclusion: she only had about 50 days left. If he couldn't find a way before the deadline, they would be parted forever. Shen Lang could stay cold in the face of thousands of deaths, but he could not bear it with Milan. If she were to leave, his entire inner world would collapse. He clenched his fists, his eyes becoming crazed yet resolute. I must save her at any price. Whatever the cost, I will bring her back. Over the next 10 days, Shen Lang practically vanished, never leaving his room. He spent 20 hours a day on experiments, using the remaining 4 to eat and rest. Almost no one could see him. When working, he allowed no one near him. If disturbed, his emotions would erupt violently. Only Binga quietly brought him meals every day. Every 2 days, when he collapsed from exhaustion, she took the chance to wash him and change his clothes. The entire house of the Xuanwu Marquis was cast in gloom, devoid of laughter. It wasn't long before news that Milan was in a vegetative state after childbirth spread. Many outsiders sneered coldly, calling it Shen Lang's retribution and even wishing she would never wake up. The Heaven Path Society sent precious medicinal ingredients and rare treasures one after another, but they were all useless. Upon hearing the news, King Ning Yuanxun did not send any royal physicians, for he understood clearly. If even Shen Lang was at a loss, no one else in the world could help. He had no choice but to lower himself and write a letter to his daughter, Princess Ninghan. In his extremely humble words, he pleaded for her to consider the bond and asked the Skycliff Sea Pavilion to intervene and save Milan. A few days later, Ninghan's letter arrived, as cold as a bucket of ice water poured over his heart. She said she could not defy the Tanhai Pavilion, nor did she intend to say Kim Mukline. Upon reading it, Ning Nguyen felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He staggered and slumped onto the bed, his hands shaking so violently he could not even hold the letter. Memories flooded back like a deluge, remembering how years ago his primary wife lay dying of appendicitis. That suffocating feeling of helplessness returned in full force, and now he understood Shen Lang's state of mind, perhaps even more painful because he loved his wife to an extreme yet remained proud to his very bones. For someone like that to fall into a state of helplessness was truly a refined level of hell. At this moment, concubine Bayan stepped forward and asked softly, "Husband, will Ninghan not agree to say Kim Mukline?" Ning Nguyen replied with a heady grunt, his heart weighing like a stone. Concubine Bayan quickly held the monarch's hand to comfort him. "Husband, please do not be angry. Please." The monarch shook his head and sighed. "My dear concubine, the truth is, I lost this daughter a long time ago. In over 10 years, she only returned once, and even then, it was to warn Shen Lang not to get involved in the succession struggle." He sighed hoarsely. "She stopped considering me her father long ago. I've only been deceiving myself." As he spoke, his tears flowed out. "My dear concubine, why do we not have children? Why do we not have any?" The crown prince has turned his back, Ninghan has slid off, even Ning Kai has followed others. Looking at the royal family, his heart was broken, but concubine Bayan still gently held his hand to comfort him. "Husband, we still have Chin Nhi who is a good child, and Demon Nhi who is a bit simple but still obedient." She paused then continued, "And think about Shen Lang. How many miracles has he already performed? What can a person like that not do? He will surely save his wife." Her words were reasonable, but the pain was not easily soothed. They could only wait together in silent helplessness. By now, Kim Muklan had been in a coma for over half a month. Chen Lang still stayed awake day and night, burying himself in research, but the results were still at a dead end. He was so frustrated he even wanted to hit his own head with a hammer to see if it would trigger a smarter mode. Right at that moment, the crown prince sent someone over, and the person who stood up to speak was Trek Xiuenhan. She opened her mouth like she was bargaining at a market. "Chen Lang, let's make a deal." Chen Lang replied exhausted and briefly. "Speak." Trek Xiuenhan leisurely presented her conditions. Hand over Ko Dao Hon to her to be killed, surrender all to 300 Nirvana soldiers, plus the bloodline modification medicine. In exchange, the crown prince would beg Ninghan to ask the Tanhai Pavilion to say Kim Mukline. During this, Chen Lang's face twitched slightly. Trek Xiuenhan added another blow. The monarch once begged Ninghan for help but was rejected, but it would be different if the crown prince spoke up. The atmosphere was as heavy as lead as she continued to taunt him. "Don't you love Kim Mukline? Or is her life not even worth 300 Nirvana soldiers, or those vials of medicine? Were you just going to watch her die? Chen Lang had been silent until now, but his heart was seething. He spoke in a low growl. You want to take advantage of the situation. Having spoken, Chen Lang jumped up and pointed straight at Trek Chi-Yuan-Han's face, yelling, "Kill her for me, this bitch." Immediately, Lythine III drew his sword and lunged forward without a second thought, because he felt Chen Lang's pain as his own. But before he could act, two grandmasters appeared beside Trek Chi-Yuan-Han. They were the same two who once fought the Sword King, and at the same time 4 top-tier experts surrounded them, the 6 people forming a tight defensive circle, making it difficult to kill her. Trek Chi-Yuan-Han stood in the middle with a cold smile. Chen Lang, think it over carefully. Tim Muckline doesn't have much time left. She no longer shouted or caused a scene. At this moment, Chen Lang became eerily calm, glaring at her and speaking slowly. If my wife dies, I will drag over 1 million people into the grave with her. Pahara. Trek Chi-Yuan-Han laughed loudly as she turned away, sneering in her heart. Killing 1 million people was just the delusional torque of a man about to lose everything. Time flew by like a racing dog. Muckline had been in a coma for 17 days. Finally there was a slight development, but it was not from Chen Lang. He was still buried in research and making no progress. The change came from elsewhere. The Tanhai Pavilion suddenly sent 2 people. 2 unfamiliar scholars clasped their hands and said the young master sent them to examine the madam. Chen Lang wondered suspiciously who the young master was. Was it Ninghan? Hadn't she refused already? His head was full of questions, but he still let the 2 in to examine Kim Muckline. The 2 took her pulse and tested her blood very thoroughly, then remained silent, neither concluding nor explaining. They only left a spine-chilling sentence. We need to examine your child. This is the key to saving the madam. Chen Lang's eyes immediately filled with hesitation. Then he raised his hand to Sybil. Wait a moment. Then Chen Lang turned around and went straight to Bang En-hai's room, where she was currently caring for Shen Jie. Taking care of 2 children alone was fine, as he had experience and help. This was also the first time in 17 days that he actively looked at his child. The baby had grown a bit more, sleeping soundly with both hands around his head, breathing steadily, as if there were nothing happening outside. Nearby, Chen Mat was also sound asleep. Chen Lang used his vision to check the bloodline. Then something even more shocking occurred. The golden bloodline had disappeared. It wasn't just weakened, it was completely gone, leaving no trace behind. Seeing this, Chen Lang turned and asked urgently, Bang En-hai, has anyone touched him lately? Bang En-hai shook her head and said no, only she and 2 old women had cared for him. Outside, the snowy mountain old monster also confirmed that no one had approached. Chen Lang found it even harder to understand, meaning the child was born with a golden bloodline, but at some unknown point, it vanished. Now, no matter how he looked at it, it was just a normal spirit bloodline. Chen Lang further asked if there was anything strange with Shen Jie, whether he was slow or weak. Hearing this, Bang En-hai's eyes turned red and she burst into tears. Husband, why would you say that? Elder sister's matters cannot be blamed on the child. Our little baby is very good, both clever and healthy. As soon as he finished speaking, the baby woke up, pouted his mouth and began to wail loudly, tears coming immediately without warning. His round eyes scanned around at Chen Lang and then at Bang En-hai. His limbs flailed about as he cried harder, extremely healthy, even alert to an almost premature degree. Bang En-hai hurriedly held the child, carrying him to Chen Lang. Look, little he's so cute, try holding him. But Chen Lang did not even bother to raise his hand, only coldly telling her to bring him a line. But sure, if he felt that coldness, he suddenly pouted and cried louder, sobbing rhythmically. Bang En-hai panicked, soothing and holding him tightly, her eyes red with pity. In her mind, she only thought that no matter what happened, he was still just a child. As soon as they went outside, Chen Lang pointed at Shen Jie and said, This is Milan's son. The 2 scholars from the pavilion at the end of the world immediately had their eyes light up as if stimulated, even trembling slightly. They hurried forward intending to check the little baby, but Bang En-hai immediately stepped back, holding him tightly like a mother hen protecting its chick. You cannot touch him. Everyone is forbidden except for parents and grandparents. The 2 scholars froze and could only take half a step back, standing a few meters away to watch, their gazes scrutinizing intimidatingly, following every detail on Shen Jie's body from his eyes to his skin. Every tiny movement was observed by them as if they were unearthing some secret. The atmosphere was as tense as a string about to snap. After a long while, they finally spoke. Young Master Shen, could we take a bit of the child's blood? No, Bang En-hai replied immediately without thinking. Chen Lang was silent for a few seconds and then nodded. Let me do it myself. Then he took a syringe and gently pricked Shen Jie's arm. Strangely, the child did not cry. He only opened his eyes wide to look at him, his mouth pouting in a look of grievance that made anyone pity him, completely unlike a 17-day-old infant. Chen Lang, with dark circles under his eyes like a panda, looked at him for a long time, muttering to himself that this tiny thing didn't cry when its blood was drawn. Could it perhaps know what was being done to it? Then Chen Lang brought the blood sample out and said, You check it here. You are not allowed to take it away. The 2 nodded and immediately took out all sorts of reagents to begin analysis. At first, their eyes shone as if they had just dug up gold, but they gradually cooled down, shifting from excitement to calmness, then disappointment, and finally becoming cold. Unwilling to give up, they checked several times, but the results remained the same. The 2 scholars turned to Chen Lang in a polite but firm tone. We are truly sorry, young Master Shen. We are powerless to save the madam. After saying this, they immediately turned and left as fast as the wind. The space became silent again. Watching them leave, Bang En-hai curled her lip and thought to herself that these 2 were truly strange and lacked any manners. Chen Lang softly said, Bang En-hai, take him back. Bang En-hai stood still with red eyes, then hurriedly stepped forward to pull Chen Lang's hand. Husband, can you hold little you for a moment? Just for a little while.